founder-VC relationship. So, you're a founder, you're choosing a VC, you're trying to build a relationship, you're navigating turmoil, you're asking yourself, did I raise enough? Is this the right partner for me? How can we grow together? And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going to introduce our three panelists, and then you can applaud them. And they're going to all come up once I've said all of their names. So let's do it. We got Patrick Lohr with Panache Ventures. He's a managing partner there. Patrick, before that, did many things, but I believe one of them, you were co-founder of iStock Photo, and you sold that company to Getty Images, which I think everyone knows, which is pretty exciting. We also have Katherine Barry, co-founder, chief product officer at Allocadia. Fun fact, she co-founded that company with her sister, who is an identical twin. So don't book a meeting with both of them at the same time. Other fun fact, Katherine is a singer, so I'm looking forward to her performance later this evening. We also have Adam from Certn. I actually don't know where he is. Oh, he's right here. That's right, the light's too bright. The funniest thing about Adam, Andrew, sorry, yeah. Andrew, which I read about, this is hilarious. Actually, super cool thing is, he buys and sells cars for fun, so he's a boss, clearly. The other thing is that whenever him and his business partner, Evan, can't be at a meeting, they pretend to be one another, just for fun. So I'm looking forward to Patrick asking him about that and what that's been like. So I'm really looking forward to that. Anyway, please welcome our three speakers for the evening. I think this is going to be a lot of fun.
Thank you. Just to start off, a couple of quick things that we want to. Yeah. Did you get that? Okay, awesome.
Sounds like what I do with my twin sister.
Yeah. We want to make this fun and interactive. So we're just going to tell some stories, but please jump in if you have questions. We're going to try to dig deep and keep it real, and we might be using some terms, some jargon, and just put up your hand if you need some explanations. Don't be shy about that, because I think we're here to, hopefully you'll take something away from this other than, our charming jokes and stories that we tell about ourselves. All right, so I like to run these things just with a little bit of fun, with a quick intro off the start. And I'm going to give you guys each a few questions. You have 30 seconds to answer them. There's going to be 5 of them. And so in about 2.5 minutes, people should get to know you, fairly quickly. So Katherine, how about a 30-second personal intro? So keep it mostly personal, something about you. And then you can sing this if you'd like.
Oh,
right?
Well, thanks. I guess now I have to talk about the singing, but
Yeah.
I do sing in a band. I've been doing that for many years, do backup singing and keyboard, and to me it's just a little bit about the creative process. I think is quite similar to making music, coming together with people. You have a little seed of an idea, it's messy, but you refine it over time and you have to practice, and then it comes together and it's a beautiful thing. Same with building a company. You start with a seed and you kind of grow it over time. So that's a little other side of me, other than the business side.
Awesome. Okay. Andrew? Adam?
Sorry, yeah, so I changed my name to Andrew for the purpose of this event. It's a really big deal for me. This is it's my debut as Andrew, so please, bear with me. A bit about me personally. Love sports. I'm a big surfer, snowboarder, used car flipper. I believe ICBC calls me a curber. It's a term I wear with a lot of passion, so please don't buy a used car for me if you don't want a good deal, just joking. I live in Victoria, so we'll keep it on the island. I started Certn with my 2 best friends, Owen and Evan.
Awesome. All right. Okay, so this time, 30 seconds, but professional intro. Maybe tell a little bit about how you got here. Maybe start with you this time.
Professional, that's really hard for me. Chronically unemployable. Have been starting companies since I learned how to drive a car. because I wanted to buy a car, and that wasn't going to happen, getting a job. So started and sold now 3 companies, and basically education, Masters of International Business and Law, Bachelor of Business. I'm a maritimer, so overly friendly. That's a plug to come chat with me, and that's my professional career there.
Awesome.
I guess for me, I studied at SFU, did a BA in communications, but wanted something a bit more tangible, did a web technology certificate, and just started building websites for people. It's kind of a creative outlet. And then I teamed up with my sister. We're identical twins, but we have complementary skill sets. So we just started doing websites and marketing services for companies and kept seeing the same business pain over and over again around marketing budgeting. So it kind of came a bit more natural to us, where we saw and experienced the pain, and it grew from there. And we just took it one step at a time. So no plans to become an entrepreneur. It just evolved from that pain point and saying there must be a better way, and let's do something about it.
That's awesome, because I think a lot of people struggle to find that pain point, and never get that great product market fit, because they never get there. Okay, so best advice that you've ever gotten as an entrepreneur. Why don't you start with this one, Katherine?
I think there's been a lot of different people who've advised us along the way and said some different pertinent things at times, but I remember one in the early days. We had an advisor who told us essentially that we should kind of push ourselves to essentially bootstrap our company, which we did, to $1 million in revenue. And he said, you got a first enterprise customer on your own with, it was 250 marketers, large enterprise, and they said, just do that again. See if you can do it 10 times, and then at that point, go and raise your seed round. And that put us in a really good position to come in a position of strength when we were going out and have choices of the types of investors that we could work with, like Pat here. And that was really good advice, and it was hard. It sounds like it should be the normal thing to do, is just to have some revenue before you go out, but it's not always the case, obviously. But for us, that was a really good place to be in, and put us in a good starting position.
Awesome. And I remember after talking to your sister that within about 5 minutes I wanted to invest, and it was just because you guys had gotten all that traction early. And by the way, you talk about it being a seed round. This was, I forget how many years ago, call it 7 years ago. It's actually a pre-seed round now, because things have gotten so expensive, right? Okay, cool. Same question for you, Andrew. Best advice you've ever gotten as an entrepreneur?
Best advice would be fail fast and fail often, and part of that is you don't know anything, so let the data tell you what the answer is. And that's super helpful as an entrepreneur, because a lot of times you're really passionate about something, and you think that you have the answer, and your heart is telling you, I have the answer to this, but the data is like, this is not the right answer. And if you just look at that data, you can figure out that that thing that only works for you is probably not the right path, and you can pivot and make something amazing from that initial idea.
Awesome, and we'll dig into some of the failures along the way, and we all have these great stories. Okay, so next question. Biggest lie that you've been told by an investor or advisor or partner? I'll start with you this time, Andrew.
That's a really good one. I guess that there's a classic one that VCs say, and it's we invest in founders and not companies. And that's to any VCs here.
Is that a lie?
I think a lot of times it is a lie, because if you look at VCs that say no, and I'm not saying all VCs, because Pat and Panache, this is not a paid plug. These guys are amazing, and they do invest in founders.
She was paid.
Yeah. So. And the reason I say that is because oftentimes it's kind of a leading thing, but basically you'll get a VC that says we invest in founders and we love you, and then they'll say we're not going to invest because we think that the market is too competitive, which is counterproductive. So in that case, you either got to find out the real reason why they didn't invest, and hopefully it's not that they don't like you.
I'm trying to think of the biggest lie. I don't know. I don't know if I can actually say that there's been a big fly. I mean, you have to align, I think, on the expectations that you have for your journey with your investors. And I do remember a piece of feedback that we definitely didn't agree with once, and it was talking about being, I think the words were literally a little bit more like Mark Benioff, and we just said that, and I don't know if it's quite a lie, but it was just, you can't be who you're not. So we didn't agree with that piece of feedback, and it was.
That's interesting. We'll dig into that a little bit more, because it sounds like that advice was be more like a dude kind of thing.
Exactly.
Okay, got it. Yeah, so that sucks. So it's like we'll change that. That was the biggest asshole you've ever met. Okay, let's switch it up a little bit. What's the biggest lie you've told to either an investor or advisor or somebody? Katherine, we'll start with you.
Well, I mean, I don't think there'd be any straight out lies, but certainly when you go into, so we have a lot of, when I talk about investors, a lot of the context is on the board, because we have a lot of investors on our board where we've leaned that way a little bit. And when you go into the board meetings, you're certainly telling the good news story first. You know, it's a little bit of a glass half full, and then you also want to, of course, tell the learnings and the things. There's always places to improve, but you know, you want to make sure you're doing that kind of the other side of the picture as well. So you can kind of get tempted in telling the good news stories, but obviously it's only to your own benefit if you're kind of being truthful about that.
So not quite a lie, but kind of omitting all the bad stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Andrew.
That sounds like pitching to me.
Yeah.
I'd say probably lying about a sense of urgency. So, you know, it doesn't always have to be what's not always real, but a reason why someone needs to invest today and not tomorrow. And I think a lot of founders do that. And I mean, I'd say it's probably good advice to do.
Sounds like we might have a little bit of a mic issue there. I wonder if someone... there we go. Okay, got it. Well, thank you for that. It was great. I learned something on that. We should do this more often.
Oh, no.
My
secret's out.
Exactly. All right, so let's take a little more time for this one. Can you give us a company update, maybe a little bit of a background, just enough that people can have some context around what we're about to dig into? And maybe, Andrew, we'll start with you on this one.
Sure. So we're a people data company. So if you need data about people for something risk relevant, like background checks for pre-employment, or tenant screening, or you have a gig economy, on-demand economy company, and you want to onboard users or contractors safely, you can come to Certn, and we can tell you about their criminal history, credit history from 200 plus countries in 77 languages in a matter of minutes. We started the company 3 years ago. We were now about 3 million in ARR. We've got 17 people currently, and we're growing. We're hiring, so please, if you want to move to the island, one of the best places on earth next to Vancouver, please come buy a house, because you'll make enough money to buy a house. Shameless plug. And yeah, I guess that's a company update. Last month, we hit a pretty big growth target. We grew 75% in 1 month, and we just announced. I'm going to announce right now we're raising our Series A. So.
Awesome. And you get a bike.
Yeah. And you get a bike. If you work for Certn, you get a free bike.
That's awesome.
Thanks. So we do marketing budget software, so it sounds very sexy, I know, but one of our investors called it the beautiful, boring idea, but it really is a pain point for organizations. And we started it about 8 years ago, and we thought it's going to be, sign up online, put your credit card in, volume kind of play, and one of the first leads was a large enterprise, and quickly realized it was a large enterprise problem. So I think a little bit uniquely in the SaaS world, we've started enterprise day one, and we've always been enterprise. Soon after Juniper, it was VMware and Citrix and F5 Networks and Conagra Foods, and managing brands like Spend against Chef Boyardee and all sorts of fun stuff. So really hit on a pain point, I think, early on. So we're able to bootstrap it to $1 million in revenue, went out for the seed, pre-seed, and that was in 2015, if I remember correctly. And then the Series A as well, $7 million we raised in about 2016. That was really to just accelerate the growth and capitalize on the opportunity. And then in 2016, we did our Series B, so 22 million, and at that point you've kind of proven your model and you're just adding fuel to the fire. So we had really good SaaS metrics because we were enterprise. It was we had a good land and expand. We had amazing retention upsell numbers, so really had a lot of choices when we were going out to raise money, and we have amazing customers now too, like Dell, Microsoft, so not a dollar spent in marketing without going through our system, and some amazing B2C brands too, like Unilever, so some really exciting stuff. And we've also just, as of the end of our fiscal year, in June, we were profitable, so that's also a very unique thing in SaaS, which also being enterprise focused has afforded us the ability to do, so that gives you a lot of choices.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yes, Phil. That is awesome. And of course, I love it because I'm a personal investor in Allocadia. And so I invested personally in Allocadia because that was the time when I was entrepreneur in residence at Innovia. So maybe you can tell the story of how you recall how that came to be.
Yeah, so we were, now it seems like such a long time ago, we were refreshing a little bit, but Pat too was with his colleague Kevin from Innovia, and they were mentioning it was just almost a side meeting to be meeting with Christine at the time, my twin sister, who I founded Allocadia with, and your intention was to come to meet another company, but it was just this quick meeting, so we had literally, it was a 15-minute kind of opportunity to speak with them, and the next day, Pat phoned, and he was sort of saying to Kevin, he says, "I can move a lot faster than you as an independent, so I'm going to write them a check." And Pat really recommended to us Inovia too, which they've been an amazing partner to throughout this whole journey, and Kevin has been on our board since day one, so in many ways, going through that from day one. And it's just culturally kind of aligned, and we always, when we were talking to Pat too, I think the fact that he was a founder too, I think you want a diverse set of perspectives, but someone who can empathize with that, and you can go to ask for different pieces of advice as it relates to more that founder perspective was really important and key for us in that decision-making process.
Yeah, I think it was really interesting. From my perspective, these things are about trust-building exercises, and the faster you can do it, the better. And so the reason why I ask, what's the biggest lie you've been told, the biggest lie you're telling, is because these things break down trust, right? And you almost don't know exactly when this happens, but there's some things, like sometimes it's just an instinct where some people you just lose trust in people. You don't know what it is, right? They just say something or they look at you the wrong way. But I think that we just connected in that Waves Coffee that day, and it was, like you say, a 15-minute meeting. And on our in the cab on the way to our meeting after that, I said to Kevin, I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this this investment. And if I had my checkbook, I would have just written her a check on the spot, right? And I called Christine the next day. I said, and by the way, I recall this because it was one of the fastest checks I'd ever written. All the metrics were there, but I remember something that really stuck in my head. They had revenues, they were profitable, they were raising something like $900 or $1 million, and you already had most of it done. You somehow had 600 or 650 done, and I said, I'm in for 50. And I would have written more, but I wanted to reserve a little bit for Inovia. So I said, I think you should take the rest of it for Inovia. Now, their minimum is probably 500 to $1 million. So I think you should make a little more room for them, and that was a big negotiation, right? But I think that, for those of you out there raising, I think the lesson there is that you can get it done in 15 minutes. It just takes kind of 5 years of company building before that, right? Yeah. Andrew, same question. Can you tell the story of how we met and how we got to this point?
Well, it's kind of funny because I feel like I stalked Pat for like 5 years. It's our company culture is that we only work with people we love. So when we started Certn, we're like, who are the types of investors that we would like to have in our company? And it's funny because if you took the really terrible drawings that we could do, we pretty much drew Pat. We were like, and we knew Pat, so we're like, we really want to get this guy on board. And we had this really great relationship from meeting at conferences and events and just kind of socially. And I don't think I'd ever asked him for money before we had started Certn. And there's some investors, and you know, this is Pat, but also Panache as a group. There's some investors that you meet and you fall in love with them as a person and as a company and with their culture. And that was, you know, with Pat, you know, he may have felt the same way about you, which is, you know, how we felt about him and Panache. So yeah, it's our story.
Yeah, and I remember, just to dig into details a little bit, we had seen you guys at a, what was that, a Fundica pitch? I think.
Yeah, Fundica
and so,
pitch, yeah.
so we said, you guys essentially won the Victoria pitch on a pitch deck, because you didn't have a real business at the time.
No.
Right? So that's like, I guess, you know, the art of the pitch right there, right? And you guys didn't come up with a real business until a year later.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah. So it was an interesting evolution. Okay, now let's dig into culture a little bit, right? What made you pick the investors, or did you have a chance to pick your investors? And Katherine, maybe we'll start with you again, because you've had the chance to go through the seed, the Series A and Series B. Did you get a chance to kind of run a competition for who you wanted?
Yeah, so one interesting story I mentioned briefly before when we chatted that not a lot of people know is that actually before we did this seed round, we'd actually done another seed round and we gave the money back, which is obviously not a very common thing, but something happened where essentially at that point Christine and I were not comfortable anymore accepting that money. And so we gave it back, and at that point we realized just how important, obviously, values are. And you know, in the long run too, one of the core kind of values we've realized is so important to align on. And in the early days, we might not have 100% realized that. But we certainly do now. But it's that growth philosophy and how you want to grow, basically, and how important that is to align with your investors on that. Is it growth at all costs and kind of shorter and go hard and fast, or is it kind of a more controlled growth and more fiscally responsible or what have you in that way, and a bit of a longer term road? So you definitely have to align on those things. I think if that's different in your perspectives, that can be probably really difficult things to reconcile over the long term. But we definitely, I think because of going back to having some revenue and having some proof, we were able to more pick who we could work with in all of those rounds. We really have, but at the same time, at the beginning, you're looking for people who will still take a chance on you ultimately, and you do have to. That's not necessarily going to be everybody, and you're not going to click with everybody either. So, and you want to just. You don't want to be doing that forever, so you gotta kind of, pick some people and take a chance on them as well, in many ways. So, but through the process, we definitely have, and then even when we did the Series A, we did do more of a kind of a valley kind of tour, and we thought we owed it to ourselves to go out there and hear what the others have to say too, and what they have to offer, and that was a good learning experience too, just the different types of investors and what they're offering, so you kind of were able to see a little bit more. And then with the Series B, we didn't do more of a tour. We had more people coming to us, and in that way we were very much able to choose someone who's very aligned with us.
Yeah, that's a great feeling. Andrew, you guys have raised some money, right? Maybe walk us through that, like how highs and lows, obviously. Right?
Definitely. Well, so as I kind of mentioned before, we only work with people that we love. So we wanted to make sure always that when we take money from an investor that we enjoy working with them. And we didn't really realize how important that was going to be until we were in a position where we needed money. And I personally might have messed up by getting two VCs to be a little too competitive with each other. And sometimes when that happens, you think you have two, but both birds are not in hand in the end. And that unfortunately it happened. So what the situation was we had a whole bunch of VCs that were really interested. It was a really exciting time. So we got two of them going back and forth. Everything was going amazingly. We decided that we were going to go with one before getting any paperwork signed, which made the other one quite upset. And then before we knew it, we had none. And in our first round, kind of our angel friends and family round, we made sure that we picked only the best investors, people that we genuinely loved. And actually, thanks to Pat, that when that deal fell through, I think we closed our round with our existing investors. It might have been 15 days after that fell through. So the importance of being choosy. I mean, we too are profitable now, which is great. So we have that opportunity to choose our investors, and we did that on purpose because if we had gotten into bed with investors that weren't of the caliber that we had taken originally, I probably wouldn't be sitting here right now. And thanks to the investors that we had, they came back in. We closed the round and have lived happily ever after. So,
why don't you call out some of those investors, because you got a pretty awesome list there, right?
Yeah. So I mean, well, Panache. I mean,
obviously.
Like Panache. You guys don't understand. Like when the first person I called when these deals fell through was Pat. I was like, "Hey, Pat, we're effed. Haven't taken a salary in 6 months. I'm fine personally, but I can't cut. We can't cut the team salaries. They're already, they're on Victoria's startup wages. I don't know what we can do." And then between Pat, Owen Matthews, and Rich Egley at Allocadia, we've got Scott Lake, Hannes, Razul, like a really solid group of Victoria folks. The team at Inovia. If I'm forgetting anyone, I will get in a lot of trouble after this. They all banded together, and they had our back, which is what we were told by one of our closest mentors, that if you have good investors, they'll stand by you, and they believed in the team, and yeah.
There's a funny story here, and we'll dig into this because this comes up at investment committee all the time, and this kind of came up with Allocadia before. Is that it goes back to the story where we tried to convince you guys to take a little more money, but you refused, right? And Andrew, maybe you can tell that story. And that I put some investors in front of you and said, Andrew, you should take a little bit more, right?
And we didn't.
Yeah.
And so basically we had raised kind of a super seed round. And then we needed a bit of a bridge round that we were kind of marketing as a seed round. And Pat in the beginning had said take more money, and we were like, we don't want to get diluted. We only need this much money. And well, he was right.
Well, but you guys were so confident because you and not to belabor this, but you guys had a contract that was about to be signed, or you thought was about to be signed, and it was big. It's big money, and you guys were adamant that you would close it, right?
So adamant that we would close it. It was, it was a contract. The contract's probably worth $2 million a year, and this is our first time ever working with like a big financial institution. So we weren't experienced, and we had colleagues and peers in the industry that are like, hey, the onboarding process for these financial institutions is going to be months, maybe years, and our contact or the contract was basically with the guy that's one down from the CEO. So we're like months or years, like, well, we got a guy at the top. It's going to take us like 2 minutes. We're going to get access to all this bank data. Like, it's going to be totally fine. And 16 months later.
It was funny because I had put some investors in front of you. One investor wanted to throw in 150, and you only took 50 from them, I think.
It's true.
And,
Yeah.
and I said, listen, you should take another $500,000 more, and I could line all that up for you, so it won't be that much work. But it's amazing how confident you are, and I think that going through some of this stuff, I think now the lesson is like take a little more money because it almost never works out the way that you plan it to, right?
Totally true.
So, okay, so that's been a big pet peeve of ours is please take our money if we're offering it, right? Okay, so Katherine, back to you on this one. Have we outgrown each other? You guys are Series B now. I'm more of a pre-seed and seed guy. We haven't talked that often lately, but it's.
We haven't. This is the most we've talked.
I know. So I'm feeling kind of sad, but I'm also feeling like really, really proud of what you guys have done, is that you guys don't need me anymore, right?
Well, no, this is part of why I'm here as well, to in a way catch up with you as well. But it's true. It's very bad. They put their money into you and their time, and I think though in the beginning that vouch of confidence and just the sureness that you had, I mean, that did mean a lot. And in the beginning, I think as an investors, as founders, you're looking for an investor who'll just believe in you. Ultimately, I think at the end of the day. And then when you go for a Series B or Series A, you're looking more, okay, they have to believe in you, but also the market opportunity. And then Series B, I think all those things plus your model. And, I just think all investors, we have so many different kinds of relationships, and at different stages. We had a seed investor too who acted as our VP of sales and gave us help on deal strategies in the early days when we didn't have that sales type of specific experience, even though, of course, as founders, you're always selling in many ways. But then over time, we've had different investors advise us in different areas that they're passionate and that they can uniquely contribute to, like about culture. We're just now even taking on a new board member, a great person in the industry that's more product focused. We've never really had that bent on our board. So I just think over time, you need different types of people giving you different types of advice. And even the investors that we've had on our board, they've evolved their roles with us too, just like my role has evolved over time and kind of how they interact with us. So I definitely think it changes over time. But you played a key role in the beginning there, and hopefully that bet pays off for you.
For sure. I think it already has. Now, as far as advice for young founders here, some people say it doesn't get any easier, because I think as a young founder, it may sound like, well, when I raise $10 million, it's going to be easy. But some people say that it doesn't get any easier, it just gets different. Would you confirm or deny that?
100% confirm. Yeah, there's different kind of stress. I mean, there's broke stress, which is challenging, and then there's how many balls can I keep in the air stress, and how many people can I manage at one time? As a founder, trying to not wear so many hats and trust other people to do the things that you did from the very beginning, it is tough. So I mean, there's new interesting challenges, and especially as a guy and my two business partners and I, we started a couple companies. We start to look back at like the broke stress days, and we're like, those are good days.
Yeah, I would agree. I'd almost say, in some ways, you could look at it that it gets harder. You have to open your eyes, I think, a bit too, as to that responsibility that you're bringing on when you're taking other people's money. At the end of the day, now you have more stakeholders, and you have bigger targets and bigger expectations, and so in that way, I think it becomes harder in some ways. But then, to your point, there's also this aspect of sure, you start to have people. We have 120 people now, so you start to have people doing a lot of the work. But it comes with its unique challenge of letting go. As I call it, layers of an onion. I think I've let go, and then there's another layer under that, and another layer. So I've made choices in my role where I'm more freed up from the day-to-day, so I can look to the future and spend time with customers and prospects. So in that way, it's become easier in a sense, but it definitely just changes over time.
And you had a funny story just before this about how big the company has gotten, right? Maybe tell us about that, like where you're meeting new employees.
Oh yeah, so we went to a bowling event, and we were socializing, and one of the new people said, I introduced myself, he introduced himself. He said, hi. I said, what do you do in the company? And he says, he told me, and then he said, what do you do? And I said, oh, I started it. And his face just went red, like all the way up. And I find it surprising now. When I was younger, I never used to look at the company page of a website and who is behind the company, which now it's the first thing that I do is you look at who's behind the company, because it definitely does say a lot. And so it always surprises me, but I understand it because I was the same.
Yeah, and so advice for the young intern over here: know who the founder of the company is, right? Andrew, I was out, I think about a year ago to your office, and you guys weren't there. And you guys were just, we sat with your team though. And your team was maybe 9 people at the time. And we all just sat in the room and we had a beer and we just had just a chat, right, on a Friday afternoon. Did you get any feedback on that from your employees?
Yeah, it was funny because, well, we're based in Victoria, so a lot of our staff don't meet our investors or our customers. So I mean, I don't know if I should put it so bluntly, but a couple of our staff, their term is "we hate rich dudes," and this is coming from people that occasionally live in their vans or school buses, and so when Pat came over, everyone's like, that guy's awesome. We need more rich dudes like that. And I'm like, these are like, our investors are all like this. And they're like, really? And it like really opened their eyes to like how awesome and friendly your VCs can be. Because I mean, part of it too is, as a founder, you're accountable to your investors. So, especially, with our 9 guys, the 9 guys you met, I think 8 of them were on the tech side. So part of that is like, hey guys, we got to meet this deadline because our investors are counting on us to meet this deadline, and sales, Evan and I are counting on us to have a product that we can sell. And yeah, it was the first time that they had ever met. I don't think they expected a long-haired VC to show up and talk about the things that they enjoyed doing. They were just. Yeah.
Every quarter we have a customer come in, and then now in our company meetings too, we have typically someone in the community. We need to do that with you, to have you come back in.
I'd love to do that. But it kind of makes me long for the day when, and I've been a part of these companies that have gone through hyper growth. And when you think about the days when your company is 5 or 10 people and you can invite everyone for lunch without making a massive restaurant reservation, right, and not to have to accommodate the vegans and the vegetarians and the meat eaters and the gluten-free people, et cetera, and to do all that and to have a nice family meal and everyone knows what everyone else is doing. That really strikes me, is that your team was so engaged, and I got marketing questions from your dev guys, right, and just like that just blows my mind that can happen at a small company, right? So.
I think that's the best stage of the company, like 5 to say 15. Until recently, our team wanted to do all of our team building events at a team member's house. So our product manager, his wife is like an incredible chef, and like for every holiday, she wanted to have everybody over to the house to have a Christmas party or a Thanksgiving party, or we do something as a team. And I mean, those are really times to cherish. Like I'd say, the best time in a company's life cycle, at least in my experience.
Yeah,
One of the things we've done is do the, to keep that closeness is the Allocadia aficionados. So the people who've been there 5+ years, we do the more intimate dinner and kind of get back together with the people who've been there for a long time, because it is a fun thing and allows you to connect a lot more.
Yeah, love that idea. Love that idea. Now, let's talk about, who ultimately what you want from your VC or your advisor. Should they be optimistic or pessimistic? Like, do you want like just the straight old, non-sugar-coated truth, like punch in the gut, or do you want it delivered a little more gently? How do you feel about that? Like, maybe start with you, Katherine.
Yeah, I think, as investors, I think as a founder, we'd kind of expect to think that they're telling your story a little bit too. So they're out there too, evangelizing and supporting and telling the story. But at the same time, I think they're doing a disservice to the founders and the company too, and to their investment in it, if they're not poking some good holes in things or asking questions in areas of maybe questions that you haven't asked yourself, and then also giving you the hard feedback. And because sometimes you're not gonna necessarily get that from other people in the team, perhaps, who might not feel like that's their place to do that. So I think it's important for them to, they also stress the positive. It's nice to also hear some of the positives, because you don't get a lot of pat on the backs either, although my sister and I try and tell each other good job. But it is nice to get that good feedback, but you definitely, it's hard to hear sometimes, but you do need to have the reality check, so that you can kind of improve.
Yeah. So Andrew, same question. Like whether it's for me or Owen or Rasul or whoever, have we delivered the information with the right tone? Or do you want it slightly more negative, slightly more positive? What are you thinking there?
We've been really fortunate to have amazing investors, and I think of our investors more as therapists than anything else. Like they always seem to know how to deliver the right message. When you really need that, like, kick in the butt to get going, they deliver it that way. When there's something that you haven't thought of, they deliver it that way. I mean, over the last few years especially, I've learned that your investors are a resource. They're not just a cheerleader or not just a sales prospect. They're people that have experience doing the things that you're trying to do, and that by always giving them a positive message and not actually being real with them, you're not actually learning from them. Because, I mean, we as founders, like we really don't know anything until we try it. So let's talk to people that have tried and failed or tried and succeeded, because it's going to make your path to success so much shorter if you can have those conversations.
Yeah, awesome. And by the way, anyone feel like tossing in a question, just feel free to jump in. Let me just throw in one more. I heard the phrase the other day that in the future VCs will be differentiated by EQ and not IQ. It sounds like you guys have had some really positive experiences on that front. Like, how important is it for your investors and advisors to support you guys on the mental health front? Maybe start with you, Katherine.
Yeah, I think a lot of the times, and again in more of the board context, but you come in and you're talking about the business, and there was a real change in a conversation at one point when one of the investors just flat out paused and said, "How do you guys feel?" And it really meant an interesting conversation that kind of came from that. It was this sort of a different kind of feel a little bit, but we've even tried that, and we've done that with our leadership team, to go around and talk about more how people are feeling. You get really interesting insights, and then how you can support each other. But with our board, as one example, I kind of, at the end of the day, I ultimately hit a burnout. This was about a year now ago, and so I had to take a 3-month leave, and it was a really difficult thing. In the grand scheme of things, 3 months, not a big deal. It went by really quickly, but I did really need to take that. Had some family health things, and also myself just all kind of experiencing some of that burnout. And the amount of support from the investors, I was actually extremely surprised, and not that I wouldn't have expected it, but I was just really appreciative at how much they all each individually reached out after and asked if there's anything else they could do. And we have a very open relationship, but it's not like you're pouring out your, all your personal, heart and soul every day or whatever. You're often getting together and talking about your business. But I was just, it was a really good experience in that way for me to just really feel that level of support from them. Although they've of course given support in a more kind of in how to build the business. That was really, it was really.
Yeah, and maybe dig into this a little bit, because you had been in it for a bunch of years. And the early days were really, really tough on you and Christine, because you had mortgaged your houses to do this thing, right?
Yeah, actually, I think we'd rented. I just bought my first house recently, but we've been rented, both of us, for a very long time, low maintenance.
Okay, got it. And so, yeah, I mean, it was struggling. Lots of, it was. It's been years and years of just struggling through, I guess, low wages, ultimate stress, et cetera, low wages, no wages, right? And so, walk us through that journey. Like how rough was it? Where'd the support come from? And then what did you do during your 3 months off to recharge?
Yeah. I think it's this. A lot of you probably have post-secondary education. It's kind of like signing up to having an exam all the time, every quarter, and you have to hit, 100% of your mark every quarter. So there's this kind of pressure to deliver and to perform. And then as we grew too, there's a lot of different presentations, and you're kind of pushing out of your comfort zone. So you're pushing your limits of what you've typically done and what you're comfortable doing. So it's a lot of being on, and then a lot of different demands from people in different time as you grow. So over time, it just, I think it's not one specific thing. It just kind of takes its toll that after years and years of being on like that. And then Christine and I, we both started families too in the process. I have a daughter, she has 2 kids, and we've really helped to support each other in that. But that's a whole other big commitment and full-time job to have. So I was able to do that with the support of partner and parents and parents-in-law and lots of family help. But then for me personally, when those people who were my support network were having health issues, I didn't realize just how key that was for my well-being, and like physically, emotionally, mentally, all of it. And so kind of tried to fill in, and I think it just hit a wall at that point. And then the 3 months, I remember it was a month and a week in, I realized I had fully reset. I was reading a book. I was just at home. I was just very simple, kept it very simple. And I was reading a book, and I remember thinking, okay, I'm back to myself now. And that was just the reset I needed in order to get back to myself and have that energy to give to other people.
Outstanding. Andrew, slightly different question for you. Probably the number one thing that I get asked from other investors doing reference checks on you guys is, what's up with Andrew, Evan, and Owen calling themselves C3Os? What's up with that, man?
So it's really a cultural thing. From experience, we all have a variety of different experiences, and internally, you kind of know what our roles are, but externally, we wanted to let everybody know that we're on the same page, we're a team. I've known Evan for 20 years, and in the last 7 years, Owen, Evan, and I have spent no more than 7 days apart, and I'd say no more than 10 feet away from each other for at least 10 hours a day. So it's something that we wanted to communicate with our team, that we operate as a team, we operate as a cohesive unit as founders, and then also throughout the team. And that was really important because in a prior business, we had a CEO that was not, he wasn't really the CEO, but had it in title, and that led to complications. It also meant that the team wasn't always on the same page. And it's really worked. Like I would definitely recommend it because, literally, Evan and I will swap in and out of meetings sometimes, and people don't even know. It's great.
You do the twin thing better than
Yeah.
I wish we could I wish we could communicate telepathically like you and your sister. I mean, we've been trying for a really long time, but
All
yeah,
right.
I mean.
All right, William's got a mic, so if you have a question.
You didn't talk about exit strategies. Has anything changed from when you first raised money and you presumably told your investors what your exit strategy was? And several years later, you're still presumably operating as a private company. How close are you to your exit, and what do you think they're likely to be?
So, yeah, so for us, we basically had a hypothesis that it would probably be around a 5-year liquidity event. We're in year 3, and to be honest, most of our investors, I think even if we were closer, they would say, hang on. So I don't think that we've had pressure to have or to change our philosophy on a liquidity event, but I think that we've had support from really great people that if we decided not to have a liquidity event according to the plan that we had laid out, that it would be met with support and also, I think, mutually beneficial.
I guess I'll answer that so in our history, we've had a couple offers in the past, and we decided to keep going, one in the very early days and one more relatively recently. And I think it might sound cheesy to say, but for us, how we've always approached it is, if you build a solid company with good fundamentals, you're providing good value to customers, and if you can be profitable too, you'll have lots of options, and then only good things can come of that. It's one thing we've not really ever had, which is a particular exit, a specific exit path strategy. We just discuss options. It's kind of it's the optionality kind of concept too, but we discuss all of those different options with our investors at the board level on a regular basis, and as a leadership team as well too. And we just, there's so many different factors and dynamics in the market, and things change so quickly now too as well, that we look at the different opportunities we have as well as we come. And that's not to say I think that might not be in the future, but we also want to build a company in BC too that's kind of a tech anchor in BC and creating jobs here too. So really, if you just continue with that mindset of serving your customer, I think only good things can come.
Another question out there somewhere?
Hi. So we hear stories all the time where startups should have a fail-fast mindset and need to complete MVP in 3 to 4 months because this reflects the founder's ability to execute, or they won't get investors at all. This doesn't appear to be the case. So is there really a magic number in terms of how long you should build a product before approaching investors?
I'll talk a little bit about what we did. So we built mock-ups. So I took my design software. I had that skill set, and we actually took, and then I did front-end coding and CSS. So I did some live stuff, some mock-ups. It was a mixture. And we went to a trade show, and we set up a tiny little booth. And we kind of set ourselves a goal. We said, if we can get 1 customer at this trade show, let's keep going. And we did. And it was this small Fallon Community Health. They were our very first customer. Two marketers, literally. And then I think in the next year, there was 1 marketer, and then they doubled their usage in the next year. But the point was, we got the 1 customer. I remember it was $422 of ARR per year. And then after we sold them, we said, well, we better make this prototype work. I knew all the bits that didn't work and that worked. So we did make it work after that. And it was a very basic use case. And we learned a lot from that. And then we continued from there. But with my skill sets, we could put a lot of sweat equity into the front end and the way it looked and the design. We did still have to pay for a back-end programmer. But that's the way we did it. So I would say, yeah, as soon as possible, the fastest you can, even paper prototypes.
Totally true. I mean, when we started the company, Envision was our best friend, and we tried to sell all these people using Envision mocks. And I mean, at that maybe people are smarter now, but we would build these Envision mocks, and we're like, this is how it's all going to work. And if they said yes, we're like, okay, we're closer. And then, you know, we'd fail in a meeting. Our original idea was actually create an insurance company. So it has gone a long way, but you learn from giving those pitches, and you start with people that you trust and that you know, and you get them to commit to giving you money. And if they won't give you money, you know that you need to fail. I think one of the things that a big mistake that founders make, especially if they're overly technical, is that you need to build out this massive behemoth of a product. You got to have a million lines of code and then try it out. You literally need a couple hours, an Envision mock, and then a customer to figure out, you know, is there a product market fit? And then you can start investing in the actual tech.
Yeah, we had our customer, Juniper Networks, who really helped us to build that true V1. And they paid us for, I think it was a 2-year thing up front, and that's when we're like, oh, this is possible to do it that way. And then they took a chance on us too, especially essentially, and we built out a lot of the functionality for them with them. But we knew that was a consistent pain point, and luckily wasn't down a rat hole just for them.
Awesome. Next question.
Great question. So my notes tell me that I should be saying closing remarks 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to give the mic to this gentleman here, and then maybe one more question, and then Patrick, I'll let you have the last question.
Awesome.
Great.
Awesome. My name's Corey. Just right now, we're bootstrapping our company. We're profitable and growing. And I was just wondering, kind of reflected on Katherine's story a bit, when is the right time to raise? And looking back, would you keep bootstrapping it? Or when does it come that point where you say, now's time to put some fuel on the fire?
Yeah, so it goes back a bit to that advice we got where they said, repeat the success you've had with a type of customer profile and repeat it 10 times and then go out and get the funding, because then you kind of have a proof point. You have something that's a little bit systematized and that you can kind of go out with as your story. So that is what we did, and it was the same kind of, it was more so B2B, high tech, enterprise, solving this pain point. And then we went out and raised that money, and I wouldn't do it any differently at all. That was the perfect time to then go and put some marketing, sales and marketing dollars to work once we knew that we had something. Hopefully that helps.
Maybe just one follow-up. Why not just keep bootstrapping it?
It's really just about accelerating the growth. You kind of get to that point where how do you leapfrog to that next phase? And we could have, but that would have been a real grind. Even more of a grind.
We have one more question up there, William?
I think you're the one more question. Oh, right here, perfect.
So you mentioned fail fast. Does that kind of go along with like pivoting your current idea into something else? Because I know you mentioned that your initial idea was an insurance company. So do you guys have like other examples of times where you felt like you had to pivot your business idea fundamentally to realize the new customer potential?
Definitely. And I mean, the fail fast philosophy is basically like little fails. So I mean, we fail at stuff all the time. Just fortunately, as you grow, they're smaller and smaller, and you learn from them. So I'd say our biggest pivot actually was, we still do. So in the property management industry, we do tenant screening. So we do tenant screening for hundreds of thousands of apartments in Canada. And then one of our clients said, hey, can we do this on our employees? And we'd always thought the pre-employment screening was a good idea. So we ended up doing this deal with the RCMP, and it was a change in our business, but we literally, like our human resources business outgrew our property management business like within 3 months. And so it's, little things like that we hadn't failed in property management, but, we had recognized that there was another opportunity that we could take. And if we hadn't failed in the beginning, so the original idea of this insurance company, like we were going to have to raise like a $5 million basically fund to reinsure our insurance company, which would have been crazy because the original idea was like, how do you insure against tenant default? And we went into a bunch of customers and they're like, hey, the reason why we have 1,000 apartments is so that we're hedging against this kind of risk. But what are you doing to check these candidates? Like, what are you doing differently to be able to guarantee this? Because we want to buy that. And so that's, you know, you can turn a failure into a success if you listen to customers in a lot of cases.
All right. Well, thank you for the questions, and thank you, Adam and and Katherine, for all your time here. We touched upon a lot of issues, and I guess closing question is: we talked about culture, we talked about mental health, we talked about EQ, IQ. We touched upon, although we didn't dig into this one, you know, women in tech. Right? And I guess final question to you, what do you guys care about most? What do you think that this industry, this tech industry, should be talking more about? It could be one of those issues or a different one. And then how do these founders get a hold of you? Would you like to talk to them, and what's the best way for them to reach out to you? And maybe start with you, Katherine.
Sure, I guess, yeah, as a woman founder in tech, and also B2B kind of enterprise, and more enterprise, also B2C, but it's a more rare thing. So I think we just need to be there to support each other. You know, I mentor a girl who wants to be an entrepreneur, talk to her once a month. So, and as a company, we do a lot of different initiatives to support women in tech. So I'm just a big proponent of that. We have 65% women leadership, which is, I think, a little bit unique. And yeah, it just provides a little bit of a different perspective, I think, and I hope. And I think we should probably, talk about that a little bit more.
And then how should people pitch you if they want to get hold of you?
Well, you know, it was interesting. This one girl that I was mentoring, I did a talk at Product Camp, Vancouver, and she just reached out to me after and just said, I really want to connect with you, and we started talking, and then we started that relationship. So really, it's just reach out to me in whatever way.
Okay, awesome, thank you. So Andrew, same question for you. What do you care about? And if someone were to pitch you, what should that pitch sound like, and how do they get a hold of you?
I think that the thing I care about, well, I know the thing that I care about most is people. So, you know, the people in my life, my friends, my family, you know, my investors who are also friends and family. And I think that's, you know, for any tech founder, if you're good to your people, you're going to go a long way. And success or failure, at the end of the day, you want your people to love you and love working for you. So inevitably, you're going to do it again, and you want those people to be with you. And in terms of getting in touch, like I said, I'm a maritimer, so you know, beer and pizzas are really good. You got me right by the lip there. No, but I love meeting new people and hearing new ideas. So you can reach me right here on LinkedIn. LinkedIn's usually the best way to get to me. Andrew McLeod, Liver of the Dream. So look me up.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone.